Testing. Okay, would everyone please be seated, and we'll start our committee of the whole meeting. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a regularly scheduled committee of the whole working session meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. The time is 9 a.m. We have a full agenda today, and some have some significant discussions surrounding some of the items that are on the agenda, so we'd ask that you be patient as we move through this agenda. We'll move to item number under appearances 1. Mary McReynolds to give us an update on the age-friendly in Virginia. Mary McReynolds and staff, please come forward and turn the light on to green. Please state your name for the record and all who are here in attendance today, and welcome to the committee of the whole meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Mary McReynolds, and I have Georgia Lane from Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging along with us, and George is going to actually start first.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mary, and thanks for having us here again. My name is Georgia Lane. I work for the Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging. We are a division of the Arrowhead Regional Development Commission. I think this is probably our second or third time talking to the City Council, so happy to be back here today and give you an update on progress that's been made under the leadership of Mary, a number of other community stakeholders with support of St. Louis County Public Health. So just as a reminder for folks, I believe you have this handout talking about what the AARP network is. In Minnesota, we probably have now about 35 communities who have enrolled in this network. It is a global network. We know that we are all aging. We know that 1 in 3 Virginia citizens are over the age of 60. And so this work is about thinking about how we can build communities for everyone to age well, because we're all aging. And so, as I mentioned, there's about 35 communities in Minnesota that are in this. We are really excited that there's been a lot of activity happening in the Iron Range. Chisholm, Balkan Township, and Mountain Iron, potentially Hibbing, are also on this process as well. So it's kind of fun to see communities going on this journey together. And so where we are at right now is in the first year. Where we have convened leaders. We've had some great support from AEOA. The library has also been a great partner, and some other community members who are really kind of diving into what this looks like. We are at the process of doing community surveying, so kind of saying like where are our strengths and where are our needs in this community to be able to be a better place for all people to live. And so that, again, is done with local Virginia residents, but the back end of it has been supported by St. Louis County Public Health. So I think that's been a great partnership kind of with the county to be able to support some of that. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mary.
Thanks, Georgia. As Georgia mentioned, there are a number of people and agencies involved in this work with us, so I really appreciate all of the members of this coalition. We're weaving together a network of volunteers and professionals that are strengthening our community through a lens of age-friendly work. And I think that's going to really be an asset for the city of Virginia. Some of the members Georgia mentioned already that are working on this, some area residents, the library, Georgia's organization, St. Louis County. We have some representatives from public health here today. AEOA is taking the lead in looking for a volunteer for us to act as our administrative coordinator. through their volunteer program. Some of the others that have had input, the University of Minnesota Duluth Memory Keepers Program, that's through their medical school, and Minnesota North College also has been involved. And some of the other resources we have that haven't physically been at the table with us include the Minnesota Council on Aging, Minnesota AARP, and a national network of age-friendly communities, which we are a part of. And I think we could take pride being the first to join that network on the Iron Range. Now, Chisholm has also been accepted in Balkan Township. Mountain Iron's still in the process, so they're following our lead, I can say. Our next steps, I mentioned about getting the administrator coordinator position, and that's through the AmeriCorps program that AEOA oversees. So if you know of anyone interested, they can talk to the folks at AEOA about enrolling in that program. We'd also like to grow our committee. So if you know of anyone, a resident, a business, or others with a passion for our community, you can send them my way. And what's really important work right now is we're launching our community survey, which is a real important step in this whole age-friendly process. You've got this as a handout today. And it shows where we're at right now. Once we have some results from this survey, we'll be able to start developing a work plan. And Quad A is going to help us with that, so we don't need to hire a consultant for that work. So the survey is online, but hard copies will be available at the library. And for those that want to take the survey online, they can, but don't have the equipment to do that or need a little help, library staff can help them work through that as well. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete, so it's not very long, but the information is really important to us, to the county and others. It's going to help promote the good work that you all do to move the city of Virginia forward as a leading livable community in our region. So it's important that the word gets out there. So you all can help spread the word about it. There'll be signs around town with a QR code. Or as I said, you can go to the public library and pick up a hard copy. Also, if you know of any events around the community that we could go table at and put information out, St. Louis County Public Health is willing to help with that. And I know we'll be at Earth Day. What is it called? Yeah, it's April 30th. And we'll be tabling along with the AEOA. So thank you all. If you have any questions. Oh, Georgia.
I wanted to give a quick shout out to Jenny and Britt for kind of being our points of contact in the city. So I think that that's really important as this work moves forward. Just as an invitation to make sure we're aligned with city initiatives, that this can sort of be the boots on the ground to help move city initiatives forward. So there, the age-friendly work is structured under 8 domains, things like housing, transportation, outdoor spaces, and public buildings. So parks are very important in livable communities. And so kind of the invitation is to continue that working relationship. So this coalition is informed about what the city's goals are and what the city's working on and the ways to kind of partner together on that. So huge shout out and thank you to Jenny and Britt for being that. And then just an invitation for all city councilors and citizens at large is to think about, employing an age-friendly lens into all the work that we do. And then last is that this has potential to bring additional dollars into Virginia for specific projects. So there are age-friendly grants that are out there right now. Unfortunately, that is closed. But I know Mary and crew has been looking at other funding available through AARP. And so it's a way that now that this is kind of formal and structured. Part of our role is as the Area Agency on Aging is to identify funding opportunities when they arise and be able to bring them in. And so I think that that's another great advantage of having this work established and being supported by the city. So, thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. Mary, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, both of you, for your information. Would you please send the QR code electronically to Pam so she can distribute it, and the city can put it on our socials, and other groups can share it in their socials as well?
Absolutely, thank you for
Thank
mentioning
you.
that. We have a flyer that's just being finalized, so that'll come out, and we do also have, thanks to the city, a page similar to Revive Virginia's on the city's website now, Age-Friendly Virginia MN, so.
Follow us on social media. There's a
Yeah,
Facebook page.
We have a Facebook page and email.
It's official.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move to item number 2 on the agenda. Matt Reed, SEH, our engineer of record, regarding 2A, approve the resolution accepting plans and specs and authorizing advertisements for bids for the 2023-2024 street improvement project. And then B, approve the resolution authorizing advertisements for bids for the 2025 pavement rehab project. Matt, good morning.
Good morning. Construction, again. Here we go. It's a vicious cycle, right? Got to do it, though. We are opening bids tomorrow, actually, FYI, for the alleys project, so we'll see that come back at the next committee of the whole meeting. We'll see how that goes. But the 2 items on the agenda for today says 23-24. That's a little bit of a, why aren't those done yet, right? Well, if you remember, we were working on some funding and some different things, and that got phased out. We're still calling it that because of the funding, so don't be confused. On the plans, it's actually a little more clear, but we are still referring to it as the 23-24 street improvement project. This is actually the last part of what was the 23-25 street and infrastructure improvement project. So we're on the tail end of that, I guess, call it phase of our improvements to the city. This one includes, just real briefly, I don't think there's a map. It's southern, down by Southern Drive, 14th Avenue, 20th Street, down on the south end of town, over kind of behind Menards. We're also looking at the signals on Chestnut Street. As a reminder, we are going to replace the signals at the intersections of 6th, 4th, and 2nd. 3rd and 5th, the signals will be removed and replaced with 4-way stops. So that we had discussed that probably about a year ago. We're also going to be doing some work on this traffic signal and the lane striping over at the intersection of 2nd Avenue and 8th Street, right by the Public Safety Building. That was discussed about a year ago. The fire department, police department, we met with them, had some adjustments. The stacking on the road and the certain times of the day getting in the way of their vehicles and things trying to get out. So we're going to make some adjustments to that as part of this project. And then if you recall, over by Super One last year when we did the project on 17th, we were planning on doing a median on 12th Avenue to keep people from coming south off of Highway 53 and turning left into Super One, where it's signed right now as an exit only, but there's still some issues there. We didn't have all the easements in place, so that will be also part of this project. So it's kind of a catch-all for the items that were left. But what we're looking for today is authorization accepting plans and specs and authorizing us to move ahead advertising for bids. We'll get the ad in probably a week from Friday, and then we'll open bids in early to mid-March and bring it back to the committee of the whole for review. That's the first item.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
I will
Councilor
move
Johnson.
acceptance of the resolution for the plans and
Councilor
specs.
Johnson moves to approve the resolution accepting plans and specs and authorizing advertisements for bids for the 2023-2024 street improvement project. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Motley. Further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, Matt, we chatted a little bit about possibly not putting in the 4th Avenue lights just because the Public Safety Center. If that can that be a change order reduction? If we look at it more specifically as we're moving forward as a cost-saving measure?
Certainly could. Yep, we could change it to a four-way stop if that was the desire of the council.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we have options. I think that would be because the Public Safety Center is moving, I don't necessarily think there's as much need there, but that's my personal opinion. I would rely on the staff to see if that's actually a legitimate concern.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Freely.
Have you heard anything about the federal funding freeze causing any jeopardy to the money that we received for the alley project, the $3.5 million?
No, that's already locked in.
Okay. Is anything locked in?
Well, the city already has Britt's not here, but I'm fairly certain the city's already got a contract and that money's been allocated.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Freely. Has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I will move the resolution authorizing advertisement for bids for the 2025 pavement rehab project.
Support.
Moved by Councilor Johnson, supported by Councilor Modley to approve the resolution authorizing advertisements for bids for the 2025 pavement rehab project. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Hey, thank you.
Item 3, Dan Haltonen from the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, and along with Gigi Grahek, regarding the draft purchase agreement for the Washington Manor. Dana, good morning.
Good morning, Mayor. So you had a draft purchase agreement in your packet that we've been working on with city staff and with Brian Lindsay, your attorney. And I believe that pretty much everything in the purchase agreement are things that we've already gone over with you as a whole, except for a couple items that I just want to point out specifically, if that's okay. So if you look on page 2, you'll see in there under the sales agreement portion, number 3, if required by St. Louis County, the city agrees to indemnify St. Louis County for said general obligation pledge. In the event St. Louis County does not provide such pledge, the city agrees to provide the VHRA the same. So, as I discussed before, there's definitely no way that we can raise enough capital through a bond without a general obligation pledge. We went to the county first because they have a better rating, and we know that we'll be able to raise more capital if they allow us to bond through them first. They have come back and said they're willing to work with us. They've done this before in another city, very similar type of a project. So we have something that we've been working on. But in that specific project, they required the city indemnify the county through a GO. So we're going to ask the city to do the same thing. We need your general obligation in order to have a debt ratio that works with this bond. And your general obligation would be to indemnify the county should we fail on paying back that bond. One way or the other, either we get that through the county and we get a better rating, or we need a general obligation from you to issue bonds in the first place. We have to have one of them, or else the deal doesn't go. So to kind of give you an idea, it's about maybe without any general obligation, we can issue revenue bonds, the HRA can, but it would be about, I think last time we looked at about $800,000 less in capital we'd be able to raise. The difference between going through the county with your indemnification and just going straight through the city with a GO is about $250,000, which is still significant in the budget that we're talking about. Is there any questions on that part?
Not for me. We're good with that.
Okay.
Brian? Okay, thank you.
So then if you turn the page, you can look at number 11. This is also different, or this was one thing that was not brought up to city councilors and something that the HRA commission had asked the city to agree to. And it's saying that in the event that this agreement is determined null and void, the city agrees to reimburse the Virginia HRA for architectural and engineering costs incurred for the preparation of plans and specifications directly related to the steam conversion and the HVAC upgrades project. VHRA agrees to work with the city to make those developed plans and specifications available to the city to be utilized for completion of those improvements. The HRA is really going out on a limb. We already contracted for architectural and engineering services. We know that we're taking a mitigated risk in that, looking at this as a partnership. What we're asking is that if this all falls apart, we aren't able to bond, we aren't able to make this project go through, that you'll pay for that portion, which we've estimated at about $81,000. To give you a comparison, if the deal doesn't go through, the HRA will be out $186,000. So we're just asking you to share in that mitigated risk. Those are the only two portions of the purchase agreement that weren't previously discussed directly.
Thank you, Dana. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Lindsay, would you comment on those two items as you were in the discussions, please?
Mayor, if I may.
Mr. Lindsay?
So as it relates the bonding issue, I've looked at it, and I've looked at other similar agreements that St. Louis County has made, and it appears to me that from a legal standpoint, the city is in a good legal position, assisting and kind of lending our guarantee to the bonds. Really, before we would be asked to do anything, the project would have to go south, and we're hoping that that doesn't happen. And it seems that there's a good plan in place. The agreement that we would be asked to enter into with the county, there's a couple of different forms that it could take, but most likely it would look like something like a joint power agreement with the county or a guarantee agreement. So I don't think that that arrangement puts the city in any unreasonable or unnecessary risk. With regard to the reimbursement for the plans and specifications, it's truly a council decision, but the understanding that I have, and that as I've been looking at it, the way that I've been looking at it is, the steam conversion is something that's gonna have to happen at that building in any event, and whether we contract to get those plans and specs, or whether the HRA does, my understanding is, in the event that we're asked to pay for those things, we'll also have the benefit of the work that's been completed.
Thank you. Sorry. So we could also work with the Department of Public Utilities in that regard as well. So Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that. I think it's time to move forward with this. I know we've been talking about the Washington Manor since long before I got on the council, and I appreciate all the time and effort everybody has put in to make this a reality. I would ask that we just keep us informed, and I will move, I guess, I'll step in for the mayor. Are you coming back? Okay, then I will move that we allow the conversation and staff to work to continue this to move forward.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Johnson, move. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
Support by Counselor Freely for discussion. Further discussion, Counselor Freely.
So these potential financial obligations, Brian, would that come from city insurance coverage, or would that something we'd have to budget for separately?
Brian?
So essentially, the form of what it would look like, it would not be insurance funds, it would be like a guarantee on the bonds.
And has the city been involved in that kind of indemnification in the past, and where did they get the money from?
Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. And I apologize, I don't have the answer to the question. Sherry may be in a better position to indicate whether, I trust we have guaranteed bonds in the past, but I don't have actual knowledge.
Your current bond right now is guaranteed, and we pay it through rent. And there's been sufficient funds in there, and if I may, Mayor, I have one question is, this agreement wouldn't take effect till July 1st of 2025?
It may be before that, depending upon when the bonds get issued. The July 1st is like a closing by July 1st. It is not necessarily as of July 1st.
Would we still receive those rent payments in?
You're going to receive the rent payments up until the date that you close, and then you'll pay your bonds with any revenues you have. I believe you've calculated that you have over enough revenues to pay the bond and have a reserve after.
So it would be totally up to the council or whatever if they wanted to start budgeting so much, which I think is a smart thing, and we could work with Dana on that. Obviously, just budgeting so we had funds in a reserve, just in case the sky should fall.
Well,
May I add to that?
yes, please, Dana.
Okay, so to give you another example of this, like there have been projects where the HRA has issued bonds and the city has provided a general obligation backing. So essentially, it's the same thing, it's just your backing is going to indemnify the county instead directly to us. So like Laurentian Manor is an example of that. Laurentian and Alpine Village have a general obligation, it was privately placed, and then the city comes in with that so that we get a lower rate on our bonds and a lower debt to coverage ratio, making it more advantageous for like the investor. The risk for the city is if we don't pay our bond, right? So if we don't, for some reason, collect enough rents to pay it, we don't have enough money to come in after and pay that. I don't anticipate that happening, just like it hasn't happened with Laurentian or Alpine or any other project that we've had. We have bonds out on several projects. But that's really where the risk is if we fail to make the bond payment, then you go out to your taxpayers through that general obligation and collect that. Does that explain that a little bit better, or do?
Kind of, sort of.
Okay.
That means that we would have to earmark funds then for being able to indemnify that?
No.
No?
You don't have to, because Dana, how long have you been operating the HRA?
How long have I been there?
Yeah, how long?
13 years.
13 years, and from day one, she's turned it around. I think she's got a pretty good track record. And in addition, we do have reserves if something should catastrophically happen. Obviously, I don't know what the annual bond payment will be on this new bond, but we could handle it.
And I will put my full faith and trust in Dana Hilton and management of
Great.
this project.
I'm sure you won't let me forget that.
Thank you, Councilor Freeby. And the goal and objective here is to devoid ourselves of ownership and operation of the Washington Manor, which has been in the city's hands for decades. So that's the ultimate goal, is to make sure that you have building under your control, and it's not a burden on our city in any other way, shape, or form with respect to legacy costs associated with maintenance, new facility upgrades, and those kind of things. So that's the goal and objective. I'm comfortable with the way it's written. Like I said, the track record that you have with respect to the others just moves this project even further. So do we have a motion and a second on the floor? We do. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to item 4 of the agenda. Sean Lewis from Kraus Anderson to review the change order number 27 for the design of the solar array, which is a B3 compliant under the state, which creates some angst for all of us.
Morning,
Morning, Sean. How are you?
John Lewis. I'm well, thank you. Senior Project Manager for Kraus Anderson Construction. Here this morning with a short and sweet update, and specifically for the solar, and then we also have part of that we're recommending to proceed forward with. So no PowerPoint presentation this morning, short and sweet. I have mentioned a few times that January and February were both really good months so far for the progress in the Virginia Public Safety. A lot of interior metal framed walls have been installed, including mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and rough-ins. And also we see some sheetrock going up already. Painters are also getting started in the apparatus bay, where the fire truck apparatus bays will be. So that's also a very big milestone there. We have some wall panels going up on the outside when weather permits. Probably not today, it's a little chilly this morning. But the roof is just about done. Like I mentioned at the last meeting, in the meantime, in the last 2 weeks, we have finished all the concrete slabs inside. So a lot of really good things. That's a quick, short, and sweet update. And then to the solar, at the last committee of the whole, I mentioned that we were looking closely at the solar and we weren't ready to recommend anything to move forward at that point. The project team, in the meantime, has reviewed it, and we'd like to recommend proceeding with finishing the design of the solar system, the solar array. And that system is tentatively in your packets with that proposed change order request is a roof plan and a site plan that shows where the arrays will be. So there'll be a solar array on the ground on the southeast side of the site, and there'll also be solar array up on the roof. And the recommended change order request is for a little over $15,000 to proceed with finishing the design. And again, as a review, that money is, we have money set aside in the budget for solar, knowing that that was a B3 requirement. So this, we still remain within budget. And what we'd like to do is complete that design and have our professionals that work on the solar really clarify the scope, so then we can finish our estimate, and the estimate is the most competitive version of that because we have all the details at that point. Presently, the system is approximately 410 kW. That's what we're estimating, split between the ground and the roof. And one thing we'd like to analyze by finishing is deciding how many go on the ground, how many go on the roof, and kind of work that so that's the most cost-effective approach. So that's the change order request in your packet that I have for recommendation to proceed with this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Sean.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
As we started this project from the very beginning, there was a B3 requirement by the state of Minnesota. And that B3 requirement was at 60 or 70%.
Correct.
And then that's an increase to 70%, and then it increased to 80%. Is that correct?
Correct. It's consistent with the energy code is incrementally gone up over the previous
It
years.
has, which is an unfunded mandate. It's required B3 because we received state funds for that through the bonding bill, and so we have to comply. In order to do that, because B3 percentage went from 60% up to 80%, that's a significant change, and that's the reason why we have to put the solar array on the ground as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Sean, I just have a question because we're doing solar. Are we building in charging stations in the public portion of the parking lot as part of this?
Great question. We have the rough-in for putting charging stations in the future. So there will be a spot for the stations. The stations themselves currently are not planned to go in yet.
Okay, so if there was an organization out there who wanted to help with that,
Absolutely.
they should get a hold of you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I will
point.
move the change order.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the change order as requested by Kraus Anderson for the solar design. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion?
I could.
Please, Councilor Freely.
And this is just personal, like solar arrays, in my opinion, are not particularly attractive features on any landscape. And so I don't know what the dimension of this is. It's on that southeast corner is what you're saying, so it's going to be
Correct.
off of Second Avenue.
Correct. Yep.
And then, how are those maintained? Is there going to be turf and grass underneath there? Are you going to have
Yes.
to mow and trim? And
Yeah.
are they going to be high enough to be able to do that? Or,
Well, that would be the intention, yeah. Typically, they're designed to be maintained around, yeah, and then the city will have to maintain that just like any other turf or grass or anything like that, yeah.
okay, that's going to be a little bit tricky, I would think. We improved that area, obviously, but if we have weeds and grass and stuff growing up under the array, it's not going to look good. But I know this is an essential part of the project.
Correct.
Those are just things that should be taken into consideration because it will be additional time and trouble for city staff to maintain that. Just FYI. Thanks.
Great point.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. It has been moved and supported. Further discussion. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. Will they be high enough like the one behind the greenhouse in Virginia so that there can be picnic tables and stuff happening under them?
Good question. Not sure yet.
Okay, well.
That's one of the things we want to find out,
All right.
actually, yeah.
So if you get a chance to go to Alcott Park, there is a solar array there that's built up high enough, and people do use it for shade in the summertime.
Oh, super.
So that might be a great opportunity to create some recreational part on that side of Second Avenue on the south side of town. Because right now, anybody on the east side of Second Avenue has nothing, and they have to, the closest park would be down by, is Southside Park or up at the Finntown Park, so there could be an opportunity there.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Sean.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, are there any other questions at all generally for the
questions for
new
Mr.
public
Lewis?
safety? All right, super. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Look forward to then your next update with the deduct. So-
Yes, and we do have a tour coming up shortly too. We'd like to invite the group here
Very good.
to a tour, and we will hopefully be within the next few weeks here.
Very good, thank you. So we have 5, 6, and 7. These are going to be some significant discussions moving forward. So if it's amenable to the council, I'd like to skip those 5, 6, and 7 just for a moment and just do items number 8, 9, and 10 under personnel. And so number 8 is posting for an external candidates for the fire marshal position. And we have Chief Frederickson and Assistant Chief Jonason and fire representatives, Mr. Bachman and Mr. Martinson. So, Chief?
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Here we are again, talking fire marshal. In our vacancy, we had a resignation end of November. We had an internal posting through December into January. We had no internal applicants. So this is new for us on uncharted ground. Today, we're not asking for an approval of that job description. We haven't even sat down with everyone in the room, with HR, with Britt, with the union reps. Britt did allude to she wanted it on today's agenda to talk about maybe a bigger picture for this position. But with that comes job description changes and larger discussions need to happen.
Thank you, Chief. I agree. As we move forward, I know that the resignation creates an opening of a staff member that's already budgeted for in 2025. But I would have a significant amount of questions. I think maybe the other councils would as well, as to how this is framed, what kind of job shape is going to be. Is this fire marshal position going to also maintain the integrity of your staffing levels and also be a full-time firefighter and ALS paramedic as well? And so all those things still have to be discussed through there. I think putting this on the agenda to put it on our radar moving forward, and we'll be looking at some information from our staff as to how we move forward with this for future meetings with another committee, the whole meeting moving forward. So we need to more vetting of this particular position, particularly in the area of the job description. Councilor Motley.
So Chief, I don't know if I took this right or not, but question, so are you hypothetically saying it's possible that the fire marshal position is changed and we can keep it hypothetically internal with not hiring an additional person, but changing job description, and obviously somebody would have to be trained into that? Is that how I'm taking this? We might not be hiring possibly
At
another
this
person?
time, sorry to interrupt.
No, sorry. Yeah.
At this time, no current members are interested in this promotion. So we are looking at an external hire, yes,
Oh,
at
okay.
adding a person.
So no way to absorb it and get somebody to, okay, just
Not
checking.
so far.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
This is looking at a replacement as opposed to a new hire, right? I mean, it wouldn't be an additional staff member. It's a replacement of a staff member that's already left. So the external posting would be, so we're talking about the posting. We're too premature before to approve a posting for this position until we vet it all out. So I appreciate this coming forward, and Britt has put this on the agenda put on our radar. So any other questions, comments from the council?
Can I?
Joel?
I won't keep you long, but the external posting that has been in the draft there, it does have some perimeter changes and some stuff that could possibly open up applicants internally within our department due to the perimeter changes. If we were to move forward with that, but I appreciate what Chief Frederickson said about future talks will be made with that. So there is still a possibility in internal, if it was allowed, could come out of that with the qualification changes from the original internal post to the external post that's drafted in the packet.
And normally, our personnel committee will take a look at those and just look at how the things move forward, and then vet this out, make a recommendation to the full council at one of the committee whole meetings. So we look forward to that discussion. Thank you. Councilor Motley?
Just random throw out here, could we ever use the state, I mean, I don't know anything about your job, but could we ever use the state fire marshal and not replace our fire marshal that resigned?
We do utilize them for post-fire fatalities, post-fire investigations to support. But as far as our inspection codes, our pre-plan, our pre-planning, our education in the schools, no. We do need that position.
So how many fire marshals are there statewide?
I don't know, but there's a shortage.
Yeah, there are very many.
Yeah. Okay. But our ISO and insurance to all that, it plays a part, big part.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Motley. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Joel. Mr. Bachman. Thank you.
You all.
Anything else? Anybody? Okay, thank you. Number 9, review the updated travel policy from the council, 11425. You have in your packet some of the changes that were requested with respect to that. I think we came to some kind of a agreement that gives our staff some latitude and also puts some parameters on how we move forward. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Was the marketing department consulted during this discussion? Yes, I'm seeing some no's. I would like to wait till we have some input from the person doing the job to make sure that we're meeting the needs of that department and potential future employees. So I will move to table this to the next committee of the whole meeting for that input.
That's the travel policy? Thank you.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Motion to table by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Councilor Friedlieb. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mayor, real quick correction.
Yes.
I believe it's Mr. Hippel rather than Mr. Bachman that's with the fire department.
Mr. Hippel, I apologize. I'm 72 years old, I got bad eyes, and these glasses aren't very good either, so I apologize for that. Okay, thank you. So I apologize for that, too. Number 10, review the recommendation of appointments for the city commissions. This comes from the Personnel Committee that met on 2/3/25.
I will move the recommendation to the council meeting.
Yeah, Councilor Johnson moves to approve the recommendation by the Personnel Committee for the appointment of city commissioners. Is there support? By Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Mayor, can I speak on behalf of
You
this?
you certainly may. City Clerk Pamela Bean.
Thank you. So yesterday, we did have a Personnel Committee meeting to interview one candidate for the VITA, and he was approved to be hired, so I guess, or appointed to the VITA Commission. That being said, are we going to wait, is your motion to wait until the council meeting to have this person participate, or are we okay with having them meet on Thursday at 8 o'clock?
I would be fine with them attending the next meeting until the formal approval of.
Everybody amenable to that? That'd be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Move to finance. Number 5, discuss the citywide solid waste fees. And as you know, we've been discussing this on a regular basis. We're looking at changing our ordinance, number 1, looking at making some adjustments to our solid waste fee to for lack of a better analogy, to shore up the solid waste fund and the enterprise fund to make it a healthy revenue generating fund for the short and the long-term future. And there's just some indication as to how we want to move forward with this. And and how, if we want a rate increase, this is the time to discuss this. Just my opinion is, I had a long conversation with Britt. I took a look at the fees. I'm not amenable to, I would prefer that we make a one lump sum increase instead of doing it incrementally over 3 years. If you're doing it for 1 year, you generate enough money to pay for the garbage truck and have some additional funds moving forward. So we have one garbage truck that's shot. So that's going to have to happen. So that's what we're looking at right now with respect to the fee increases. So I'm opening this up for discussion. Counselor Beyondich, and then over to Counselor Freely.
After going through some of the paperwork on the finances, we did in fact have money for the garbage truck, is that correct?
That is correct.
$297,000 was left in the fund, is that correct?
I haven't done the math, sir, but there was enough money in there to pay for the garbage truck. If I may, it's just that 1 year to pay the truck back would help that fund balance back up again, so we have money for other purchases like garbage cans that are coming due, trucks. In another 2 years, you're going to be looking at another truck. We have ASME wage increases next year. So having a healthy fund balance so that, and I don't want to jump down the line here, but you got a grader coming up. When you budget and plan and increase your fund balance appropriately, it's not going to be like, okay, where are we going to find the money? You're sitting here going, uh-oh, what are we going to do? If you keep depleting your fund balance, that's where you're going to be.
Do you want to continue, Counselor Beyondich?
So when you talk about the grader, would that come out of the solid waste? That's more of an, is the
No,
solid
that's
waste?
just an
is
example.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Counselor Freely?
So the city has incurred increasing costs for tipping fees from the county, solid waste fees, and the enterprise fund has been historically and traditionally funded through our costs to our consumers, our residents, correct?
Enterprise, it's an enterprise fund, so all the money that we collect from businesses and residents with respect to garbage goes into the enterprise fund to manage and maintain the garbage service. It doesn't go into the general fund, it goes into a enterprise fund specifically for solid waste.
So to keep up with the costs that we're incurring from the county, we'd have to increase the fees to the residents in the city.
And I wish Britt was here, but she has a spreadsheet that she can show to us as well. That shows what we pay for garbage, what our residents and business pay for garbage, as opposed to what other committees pay as well. And so that's very helpful to know that. We've seen that, and we have our rates are pretty low, by comparison. So the first three things we have to do: first, we have to take care of the ordinance, get the ordinance shored up, make sure that we give ourselves some latitude and some opportunities and some decision-making authority when it comes to those kind of things. We don't have anything in our garbage ordinance with respect to burning. We don't have anything in our garbage ordinance with respect to issuing hauler licenses. We don't know where the food products are from the grocery stores are being disposed of, because there's a state law that requires it can't go in the regular garbage cans. So there's a lot of things that we have to look at with respect to that. And these and others are recommendations that we're going to have to take a look at, that the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency has given us some guidance as to what they think we should do. So first thing is the ordinance, and then also increasing our garbage rates. And then that gives us latitude to move forward in the future with adjustments to any services we might want to consider.
Thank you.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know why I haven't asked this question prior to this, but what is the difference between residential single can garbage collection in Midway and the bulk can in the majority of the rest of town? Do those fees vary what does that look like?
Sherry?
I believe on page 39 of your packet, she has it listed out.
All I'm seeing is an increase to garbage fees residential, and then the residential per unit, which I'm guessing is multifamily dwellings. I'm curious to know if an individual who lives in Midway who has their own can that regulates what's put in and out of it is a different rate than my can, who anybody and everybody who does can just drop garbage in.
No.
Okay.
From what I understand, the current charges, which are highlighted in yellow, those are the fees.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I am, again, whatever we do moving forward, I want to have my own can. I think there are numerous people in the city of Virginia who would love to have their own garbage cans so they know what they're putting in, and that would significantly decrease the amount of garbage that I'm paying for that's not mine, that's not everybody else's. And that's how I am going to continue to try to steer this direction instead of raising rates on 300-gallon cans that anybody and everybody can put anything and everything in, that we come to a place where we can have individual cans. And as I've seen in some of the proposals, there's different size cans for different size families. And I think that is how we solve the bigger problem of our garbage rates and our blight and our everything. And when it comes to just to be completely transparent, if we ever go to private haulers, I think taking our garbage team and creating a blight team of 3 or 4 or 5 people full-time would clean this town up in about three years, without a doubt. Instead of having people drive around dump trucks or garbage trucks and picking up cans of other people's garbages, now we have 3 people driving around single haulers, and I understand commercial is different, by all means. But then now we, instead of having one part-time person struggling every week to do blight remediation, part-time, they're a full-time position, but they're doing it part-time. Now we have 3 full-time people working together to clean up our city. And I think that alleviates a lot of the concerns and questions that people have about what we're doing. So I'm willing to pay more for my garbage. I've talked to people in other towns. We are the cheapest rates anywhere. A business owner once told me, and I won't use all of the words that they used, but we have a really good deal in Virginia compared to other places where they have businesses. So that's where I'm at, is let's solve the problem instead of just putting Band-Aids on it and charging people more for the sake of other people's garbage. So that's where I stand on this. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. So real quickly for me, I concur that individual cans are the way to go. There's no question about that. It accomplishes a number of things. One, it accomplishes it reduces the amount of illegal dumping in the community because you have an individual can, goes in your garage or up in your backyard, so no one can come in down the alley and empty garbage, number one. Number two, it also then reduces the amount of tipping fees that we have to haul to the landfill. That helps a lot because this county just recently raised our tipping fees. They hadn't raised for a while, but they raised it significantly. So that's a cost to us as well. We don't get any money from this county any longer when it comes to private hauler. I mean, when it comes to the recycling. We used to get rebates from recycling during COVID. That went away. We didn't get anything from the county in that regard. And we chose as a council to get rid of recycling, which creates an issue as well. So I agree, Councilor Johnson, individual cans are the way to go. We have to find a way in which to fund that. How we do that, I don't know, but I think we have to change the ordinance. And I do believe that the rates should still have to go up regardless, because there's going to be initial investment in individual cans. And so however we work that, there's going to be additional staff that's going to do that, or we're going to have private haulers do that as well. That comes with ordinance change. So the ordinance has to change first. And then, and of course, along with that ordinance comes any rate adjustments if we want to consider that too. So, Councilor Motley.
I echo Councilor Johnson and you, Mr. Mayor, on the individual garbage cans. as far as rates, I think we all are fully aware we are undercharging the residents for the services that we provide, which is why we bought a garbage truck, and the money we made last year did not cover the garbage truck. We went into reserves to cover the difference in the garbage truck, which means we are not charging them enough to cover the things we need, which would be future garbage trucks, possibly another recycler, all things that would be, Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong, would this be coming out of the reserve, or are we looking to bond if we continue moving forward with the current garbage and increasing the rates?
The $6 is what we suggested for a rate increase, would be a flat fee. We wouldn't bond.
Okay.
We wouldn't reserve, come out of it. This would go into our fund balance, building up the reserve, paying back ourselves the 200 and some odd dollars. I don't recall right offhand. What was it? 325,000, I believe, for that.
Right under.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that came out of the fund reserve. This would put money back in there. It would also help with, like I said, wage increases because of the union contracts. New garbage cans, we have to replace those on a regular basis, and they've doubled in price. And a new truck every 2 years.
So my big thing is, representing the taxpayers, I want what's best for the taxpayers financially. So whether it's outsourcing or we continue on with the service we have currently, I want what's the cheapest bang for your buck as a taxpayer. And I need to know if raising the rates, we need to know if raising the rates is going to be cheaper in the long run with everything that goes with carrying our own garbage service, will be cheaper for the taxpayers, or hypothetically, we've had several interviews, is it cheaper to go with one of them? That's what I need to know in making a decision going forward. And I know that's not a decision for like right now, probably, but I want to know black and white, and I want to know what's the cheapest to the taxpayers of Virginia. Because I have my opinion on what is, but I need to know facts. So, are we looking to raise the rates today? Is that a motion we're looking for, or is this just a discussion, Sherry or Mr. Mayor?
It is a discussion. We put it on the agenda for discussion purposes. But in my conversations with Britt, that, we have to get off center here, make a decision once we're to go with respect to the fees. We're here to discuss the solid waste fees, not the services that could be provided later on down the road. And that could be the case. But the ordinance has to change and add all those things in there. And Britt has been working with staff on that ordinance to determine, how we make sure we cover all the bases and are in compliance with the recommendation made by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. But at the same time, in order to pay for this garbage service, in order to buy individual cans, in order to do all these kind of things, if that's what we plan on doing, we have to raise the rates. And I think that's what we're here to discuss, if we want to do that and how we want to do that. So, like I said early on in the conversation, that if we raise the rates, you can always make decisions later down the line for adjustment of services if we want to. But I think the rates have to be raised, and I know it's a burden on the residents to do that. But they're paying less than anybody else around, and by raising the rates at one time to $6, I think it's better to do it one time instead of doing it incrementally. That's my opinion. So, Councilor Motley.
Thank you.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. And to kind of piggyback off what Councilor Motley said, I guess I would like to know what those costs are. And I will make a motion accordingly to direct the staff to figure out what would the cost of buying individual cans be moving forward for the appropriate residents. And then I wonder if can replacement, how that would change if we don't have big black targets sitting in alleys all the time. I'm wondering how that would change how we do snow removal and how that would increase the efficiency of our city staff if there are not large 300-gallon cans sitting every 10 to 50 feet in alleys, what that would look like. Since the advent of no steam and automatic snow removal in alleys, our staff are spending extremely longer amount of times in alleys removing snow. There is more snow piling up. So I think there's a bigger picture here to look at too, like how would individual cans create efficiencies when doing other stuff. But I will make a motion to direct staff to research the actual costs of cans, can replacement, individual cans, what that would look like as a bigger picture when it comes to how that would relate to our rate increases.
Okay, motion by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support.
By Counselor Freely. Further discussion. Did you have something, Counselor Bachschneider?
Yes, thank you.
And then-
So I'm curious, I understand like needing to update the ordinance, but it feels like everything else is almost backwards now. Like what's the purpose of talking about a fee increase? And what's the timeline of if we were to contract out services, and like what's that timeline we would make a decision? Because it feels weird having this conversation without knowing any sort of timeline.
What comes with with an ordinance adjustment and amendment comes rate changes as part of that as well. So working together for both the wording and the recommendation for rates will be, they kind of go hand in hand. We might pass the ordinance. So if there's, say for example, the motion on the floor is for individual cans, how much is that going to cost? Well, that's what we're looking for staff to do that. So I'm going to ask you, Jim, would you be willing to come up? Just to give us an understanding, Jim Rosvit, our Public Works Director. You know, I know we have full-time cans, the big cans moving forward, and just looking for your thoughts as we're discussing this.
Good morning. I guess what specific, what are you looking for?
Well, the question was, the rate adjustments and then the ordinance changes with, that the MPCA is asking us to move in, what we have to make some changes because our ordinance is woefully outdated. So, but with respect to the garbage cans, the individual cans costs associated, do you have any idea what that would entail approximately? And then if there was any additional staff would have to be hired to do that. And in addition to that, as Councilor Johnson has alluded to, putting together a blight team of 3 full-time people to accomplish, the blight issue as well. So I think, like we talked before here in my office on a number of occasions, we talked about the individual cans and how that can be beneficial to thwarting the illegally dumping around town, which is massive. So,
Sure. And I believe individual cans is probably the way to go in the city. I think if we were looking at it, our best option would be to maybe work a pilot program and do one area and see how that works for us. The thing you're going to change with individual cans are that garbage truck won't pick up both sides of the alley as they're going down it. So it's going to be a longer route. And I hate to see it, but the neighbors aren't as friendly as they used to be. Nobody wants an extra garbage can on their property if it's their next door neighbor across the alley or what it might be. So that comes into play. I do think it's going to be something that we're going to see is going to 90s in a lot of this. Also, we might have to put on additional staff or an additional truck. Like I say, we'd have to look at our time frame, what it takes and what it costs. Going back to blight, I think our biggest problem with blight is accountability. I found a recliner in the middle of the street yesterday morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. Somebody obviously just threw it out on the street and left town. But I mean, we're seeing more and more of that all day, every day. And nobody's being held responsible or prosecuted when they are dumping, and it's gotten so continuous. I feel I've seen in the 3 years I've been here, I see a lot more blight than I did even when I first started here. That's kind of where I sit on it, but I do believe that 90s are probably the answer. I know the businesses, a lot of them are struggling too, where they'll come back on the weekends and their cans are full, or even in the mall area, say the Arby's doesn't lock theirs up and they're all full come Monday morning and that, so people are coming in town and dumping, making illegal dumps and that, so.
Did you want to have any more questions, Councilor Bachschnider?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Freely?
We'd still be required to retain 300-gallon ones for commercial uses or Arby's and so on and so forth. So there'd be a mix between 90s and 300s, right?
Yes, and we do have that now. We still do utilize a lot of 90s for our special events, Land of the Loon, the parades, the food festivals, all the extra activities, the stuff at the ITMEC, things like that. So
So we have the mechanical apparatus on these trucks to be able to handle either or.
300 or 90s. But like Councilor Johnson was saying, that some were talking about some additional cans, I don't know, on different sizes. I don't know if those trucks would accommodate those. Also, I wanted to bring it to your attention too, I don't feel the need that we actually would need a garbage truck every 5 years internally, continuously. I feel we'd be better off even if we went to a lease on this. These lease options are a lot better options for us. If you're looking at rotating things out, you got the lease payment, you've got the warranties with them, and you move on, you get into something new again where it's not this large, and the cost of garbage trucks, our last garbage truck went up almost $100,000. So, that $311,000 is a big pill to swallow. We try to rotate 5 years on the 3 trucks we have.
Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Jim, for coming in, and appreciate your input. And as my motion was, I think that this is the kind of other information that we forget to ask about. So I appreciate you coming forward and look forward to some other possible details with costs and stuff for what we would need. And I really do like the idea of the pilot project. I think that would be a significant way to demonstrate, and would rely on the staff to propose that as well.
I believe if we try to turn everything at once, we're really gonna stumble and struggle on that. But I think if we pick an area in addition, or a route, one of the routes for one of the drivers or something, and we work that, we can kind of see how things are and patrol on how things are developing or working out for us also.
Maybe that could be one of the more problematic routes. I know your staff know what those would look like. Maybe that's where we could start, is a smaller problematic area of town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Okay. Well, I know that, would you read the motion back, please, Pam?
Counselor Johnson might have to help me on this one. Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Friedlieb, to request staff to provide more information on garbage can replacement of individual cans versus the 300-gallon cans and how it relates to rate increases.
And I would add to that, and since Jim brought it up, a possible pilot program for individual cans and the cost thereof.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Councilor Miley.
So I just wanted to let the council know, just thinking about the garbage cans, as I was one of several on the interview committee for RFPs on our garbage, I know of at least one of the companies we interviewed would cover the costs of the cans across the whole city of Virginia, and they would buy them. And I can't remember, I know it was at least one of them. So just keep that in mind as we talk about purchasing garbage cans. Also, they were gonna absorb the costs and buy them all. And they had more than 2 options for garbage can sizes, and they have the ability to lock all commercial garbage cans to reduce the illegal dumping in the city, which is overboard, and just food for thought, but I'll support the reaching service or looking out to see what garbage cans cost. But thank you, Mayor.
Okay, it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And one final thing, I still think we should raise the rates, so. Okay. Anything else on solid waste fees?
It's unfortunate that Britt's not here, excuse me.
Yeah, please, Councilor Motley.
So was it Britt or Sherry's recommendation as a city of Virginia to increase it by $6? Because obviously we're undercharging, so we know that. So do we have to increase that before we talk about future of garbage? Or what's the recommendation of the city going forward?
We don't have to, but the longer we wait, the more that fund is being depleted. You know, we have a cardboard recycling truck that's supposed to be purchased. We have maintenance on the garbage truck that's in big trouble. We had one down for a week. I mean, so, you know. So.
Sherry, can I ask your opinion? Would you be willing to give it?
Sherry?
Thank you. I don't like to give my opinions.
I know.
But this is definitely something that both me and Britt have discussed, and the $6 increase would help pay back that garbage truck that we just purchased into the fund reserves, and also help with future expenses on equipment and wage increases.
So would it be potentially your recommendation, regardless of what the garbage looks like in the future, to raise the rates at this time?
Yes, because like the mayor mentioned, you can always change if you find something better.
Okay. So are we looking at a one-time, Mr. Mayor, of $6, or what would that motion look like to appease the city in its current?
Well, that was just my suggestion. As we move forward, changing the ordinance, complying with that, give us the opportunity to have some latitude on how we provide services, whether it's from a private hauler or whether it's from the current city staff that we have. But it's about, with the ordinance amendments comes a rate increase, and that's recommended, and Britt has recommended that for the last 6 months, that we have some kind of a rate increase, and that's needed. The council needs to take some action from my perspective. And it was only my opinion that we raise it on a one-time fee. It can be done incrementally or whatever the case may be, but there's some immediate needs to shore up that fund.
So Sherry, would this a one-time, is it $6 a year or $6 a month, or what are we looking at for rate increase at this time?
It'd be $6 a month.
Okay. I'll make that motion on recommendation of the city to raise the garbage rate $6 a month. Thank you.
Motion by Councilor Motley, is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Freely. Further discussion in that regard?
Sherry, is that what you'd like to see as of?
We would have to go with March 1st. We're already past February.
Yes, March 1st, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think $6 a month as a one-time fee, a month notice is too steep for a lot of people. We are in a place where I think that we should be able to allow people to budget, including companies, businesses, and that kind of stuff. My proposal was going to be a stepped $3 this year, $2 next year, and $1 the year after, and then we figure out a plan how to do it incrementally moving forward. According to my math, if we do it that way, $3, $2, $1, then in 3 years there would actually be that third year would be at the $6 a month, and it would be a little bit more than the $300,000 that would happen this year. So I don't feel like I can support a $6 fee with no notice to our, especially to the larger residential places, the HRA, them coming up with several $1,000s next month when they have already budgeted for the year, I don't think is appropriate. And I would, and I know we need it now, but I would put this off at least 1 or 2 months for for people to be able to have discussions when it comes to businesses, to how are they gonna fund the additional rates. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Johnson. I think it's too soon to do it effective March 1st as well. I think that the general public has the right and should have the right to weigh in on any increases we're going to make. We should have some kind of a public hearing and some notices of not a public hearing, but a public meeting and notice of, and let people, and lay out. And Britta's got a presentation to lay out why we would have to raise our rates. And we can make that determination whether it's going to be a $6 or a 3-2-1 or whatever the case may be. But there's a motion on the floor to raise it $6 and further discussion. Counselor Bachschneider.
Thank you. When we were looking at the $6, that's going to be the same across residential and business. Is that correct as well? That's looking at then like a 65% increase for residents and a 10% increase for business. And I think that that is a concerning percentage for me when looking at the rate increase of making it the same across the board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beyondich.
So when you're talking about these numbers, is that $6 going to cover what needs to be covered?
Sherry.
Mayor, Councilman Beyondich, would you look on page 39? And the $6, the bottom yellow total box is $307,854 is the projected amount that would go back into reserves. A new truck costs $325,000. Ask me wage increases, so it will help, but realize depending on what kind of equipment you buy and how often you buy it, yeah, it should be sufficient, but I can't, once again, if I had a crystal ball, I probably wouldn't be here, I'd be on a beach somewhere.
So my question is, when these costs come up, at the end of the year, if we don't have the money, where does the money come from?
As the crow flies, it'll come out of the general fund. The general fund will subsidize any enterprise that is not meeting its budget and is in a deficit.
And in reality, is that through a levy?
In reality, it's coming out of the city's reserves, and if you don't levy to make your reserves healthy, yeah.
So, and I understand the incremental. I also understand if we could take a little bit of time, but the reality is nobody's giving us a cut or a percentage of a cut each year to cover cost. So for me, if they have to be raised, bite the bullet and do the raise, because the city still has to pay for that. It still comes out of then our general fund. So to do it incrementally, then it's spread across everybody. If the cost is what the cost is, and doing business, a cost is a cost. I can see taking the time to inform the public on it, but if that's the real cost, that's the cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you. And to your point, Counselor Bachschneider, I think that is something that should be looked at. We should be looking at how it affects individuals and maybe find some equity in distributing the cost, knowing that, of course, commercial is different, and there are there are peak times for them and that kind of stuff as well. So I will be voting no on this particular motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Would you please read back the motion, Pam?
Who was the support on that?
Counselor Friedlieb.
Okay. Moved by Counselor Motley, supported by Counselor Friedlieb to increase the garbage rate for residential and commercial to $6 per month beginning March 1st, 2025.
Any further discussion? I do. I just think March 1st is too soon. The public needs to know. We should have some kind of a meeting prior to that to talk about that. So I'm good with the $6, the way the motion is, but the March 1st deadline, I think, is a little bit too soon for that. Counselor Motley?
I'd be willing to amend my motion and bump it out a month if that gives it a little more
April?
cushion. Sure. Would that be amenable to?
We should be able to have a community meeting in that regard by then. The amended motion is to take the March 1st deadline off the table and push it out to April. So citizens can be informed about what our plans are. Would you amend your motion to that, Councilor Friedlieb?
I would, with further discussion, if I could.
Any further discussion on the amended motion? Councilor Friedlieb?
And it may not be even the amended motion. It's like we held interviews, did we not, with commercial haulers to determine whether or not that would be a viable option.
We did.
And so have we concluded that analysis of what the cost would be with the commercial versus this additional raise to our residents? Have we made a conclusion yet as to, or I guess I'm not sure why we went the route of seeking that information from commercial haulers and then have not discussed any kind of comparison or where we stood with that. I guess I'm still in the dark as to where we're at with that decision.
And I think part of that is the ordinance itself.
The what?
The ordinance itself.
Okay.
The ordinance has to be changed to allow for a private hauler for a license to be issued, like a solid waste license of some sort. So that's part of it.
So are we premature then right now with where we're at with what we're discussing, given that we haven't even concluded the discussion of the ordinance?
Well, if we're doing this prematurely, this is true. But if we decide to go the private hauler route, then the increase goes away. But we still have to collect enough money to pay ourselves back for buying this other garbage truck.
In the interim.
In the interim.
As each day passes.
Yes.
Okay.
Pam?
Thank you, Mayor. Just an update on the proposed ordinance. We already had the first reading at the last meeting. The next reading will be on the 25th. Or, sorry, the 11th. So we concluded the first reading. The second reading of the ordinance will be on the 11th, and then it takes effect 15 days after advertisement. So the ordinance has already been vetted.
Councilor Bachschneider.
Thank you. While I understand that the ordinance has to be updated, it still feels like we can have some sort of conversation, almost like a table of what does it cost for the city of Virginia versus what it would cost if we were to contract it out. And I still feel like how we're doing this is backwards as well, so I concur. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Councilor Motley.
I completely agree with you. I wholeheartedly, both of you. I had requested one of the interviewees to be here today, and it was halted. So to speak about ongoing garbage talks, because we had moved the ordinance forward, I completely agree with you. Because if we do in the future end up outsourcing, this whole conversation is mute and dead and doesn't exist anymore. So completely agree with you, and I share your frustration. Thank you.
Anything else from anybody before we vote on the motion? Moved and supported, moved by Counselor Motley, supported by Counselor Freelieb, to raise the garbage rate $6 a month, beginning sometime in April. We'll have a committee meeting to discuss that. So the motion's on the floor with support to increase the garbage rate to $6. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, roll call, please, Pam.
Johnson?
No.
Motley?
Yes.
Paulson is absent. Beyondich? Bachschnider?
No.
Friedlieb?
No.
Okay, yes. Motion fails 4-3. Thank you. Counselor Johnson.
I will motion to direct staff to create to facilitate discussion comparing what was proffered in the interviews and what we're working on now, as well as a plan of what it would look like to do an incremental increase as opposed to a one-time fee. So it's a lot of work for staff, but I think it's the information that we need to make a good decision for everybody involved, our citizens, the employees, the contractors who have been waiting diligently to see how we're going to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. So the second reading of the ordinance will be vetted out on the February 11th meeting. And then, was there a motion to direct staff?
Yes.
Was there support for that motion? Is there support for Counselor Johnson's motion to direct staff to work the numbers for an incremental increase over time for the garbage rates? Is there support for that?
And to talk about the difference between keeping it city and the contractors.
Sure.
Support
Yeah,
for
that's fine.
discussion.
Support by Counselor Bachschnider for further discussion. Further discussion, Counselor Bachschnider.
Would you be amenable to including both incremental and a one-time fee as part of that discussion?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you. With that amendment, I continue to support.
All right, moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Motley?
So with this motion, when the time comes for the city to present that, I would hope that who we're using as the comparison to the city for garbage would be also asked to be here and present. Thank you.
Yeah, the February 11th meeting would be the passage or the non-passage of the second reading of the ordinance, which that ordinance gives the authority for the city to issue solid waste licenses, which we don't have that authority under the ordinance right now. So we need to pass the ordinance first, in my opinion. Counselor Freely.
So does this lack of action that we've been doing up to this point then continue to drain our enterprise fund to the point where it's going to cost us significantly for the future in terms of like being able to afford trucks and
Well, we have garbage cans that yes to be purchased, right? And we don't have the money for that. So that's just one item.
the purchase of the recent truck?
Well, we have money that we can pay ourselves back. If incrementally, it would take longer time to pay us ourselves back. The policy, according to the state of Minnesota, proper practices for finance is to make sure that you pay that back within 3 years.
So we're basically mobilizing through this last motion to get all the information necessary to come up with an actual decision.
Which we've been working
towards.
Slowly toward that, yeah. Yep, yes.
To the detriment of our enterprise fund.
To the detriment of our enterprise fund, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. We vote. Okay. We have the motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Jim? I'll review the proposals for a lease of a 2024 grader for the Public Works Department. Would you come up here?
Well, I guess I don't know if it's happened to our grader last week, but like everything else in the city, we've got 3 aging graders, all 25 to 30 years old, all worn out. The last one, transmission went out on it. We've been limping it through, hoping we'd make it through the winter, but unfortunately it came apart on us. I did look at some used ones. I looked at some purchases. The options just aren't good. Our best option I would recommend is a lease on one. I was hoping to finish our lease with our last loader and our skidster and then purchase a new one. But the position we're in now, I feel even rental isn't, I mean, we're throwing money away on our rentals, so. And we do run 3 graders during every snow event. Right now, we've had to kick a plow truck, a larger plow truck off a route, and we've been actually trying to utilize a pickup truck and an extra loader to do plow routes because we are down the 1 grader, so.
I guess I'll step in for Mayor Cuffey. Are there any questions for Jim, Councillor Motley?
Just a question, I feel like I need to just ask, where would the money be coming from, Sherry, for the grader?
Well, depending on, sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Counselor. Depending on what the council chooses, I see there's used graders here, and this would be per year payment.
Yes.
And so they range from 123,000 roughly to 47,320. I don't know anything about graders, so I would have to rely on Public Works Director Jim Rossowitz professionalism on what is a good buy. Obviously, new is nice, but a new one is going to cost you this 2025, 672 is what you're looking at, Jim?
Actually, there's some 24s that are new yet. I would recommend it would be our best bet. The 2 leases that the 2 used ones we were looking at, one was 7,000 hours, one was 3,500 hours. Average hours on a grader, 12 to 14,000 hours you're looking, and then you're either kicking it to the curb or looking at a total rebuild on it. And those might run you $150,000, $175,000. So I'm not very apprehensive on this. I think our best bet is to lease new. The thing with the lease is also, you're making that year annual payment, but you're getting a 72-month warranty on that. It covers everything except for wear items. If you blow a tire, obviously, that's out of your own pocket. Cutting edges, things like that, wearable items, you replace, but anything else, it's covered for 72 months, which is a pretty good program. The thing also on a lease is we would have an option this year where we could put $20,000 or $30,000, get into a lease, and then not make a lease payment for a year. And then that lease payment would be, we could either go with the 4-year or the 5-year of $101,000 or $123,000 a year. And I think then after a year that would free up, we would be cut off on our leases on a loader and a skidster, which would help us, if we can absorb next year, I think we'd be all right the following year.
Councillor Motley?
Thank you, Jim. So does that come out of your budget, or where does the money come from, Sherry?
Mayor,
Sherry?
Councillor Motley, streets will sit in the general fund. So it'll be out of his budget, but obviously he doesn't have budget money. in there for this year for a grader. So are you saying, Jim, $20,000 this year?
I believe so. I was talking with, and these are Sourcewell bids, so these are government bids, so I've only got one vendor on this. He believed that $20,000 could put us in a new grader for the year, and then we'd see a lease payment a year from now would be our first lease payment.
I'd have to budget for next year's lease payment.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I would move to authorize the staff to come up with their recommendation to be approved at the next council meeting for the lease payment, with a smaller lease payment this year, with the ability to budget for next several years lease payment for this equipment.
A motion on the floor by Councilor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? By hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next item is a request from Jim Rajat, our Public Works Director, for the purchase of a 2008 Ford F-250 from a Virginia Public Utilities in the amount of $20,000. And can you give us a little update on how long we've been using this vehicle from the PUC?
First of all, I want to correct, it's a 2008 550, so it's a 1.5-ton truck. And we borrowed it almost 2 years ago. We weren't paying any rent on it, and I was hoping Aaron and Frenchie wouldn't catch on, but they did catch on. But what it is, it's got a contractor box on it, and it's a bucket truck. We have 2 existing bucket trucks that are both out of compliance right now. Both need to go down to Reach All in Duluth for recertifications, and those are the 2, I know I brought it to your attention before, that we're not able to get parts for either one of those because the line shut down when COVID arrived, and they were older units. But we might be able to get one or both of them active to run again. But we do use this bucket truck, service truck. We've been using it for a couple of years, and they finally told me, we'll give you a good deal on it, which is a real good price on that truck. Otherwise, they're going to sell it on the government deals.
I would think that if they were going to sell it on the government rate, if we didn't buy the truck, that they would be a good partner in providing services to the city of Virginia. Just give it to you, so.
Well, and I was hoping that, and he said, well, we give you a pretty good deal on the loader, and like I say, they're very good about us just borrowing their tandem dump trucks whenever we need them and that, so, and I don't see a fee for that either, so.
Sure, thank you. Council, questions, comments? The question is,
Probably beat you to it.
Councilor Beyondich?
Yes. This wasn't a budgeted item then?
No.
Do you have money in your budget for this purchase, or what are the alternatives?
Terry, maybe you can answer that.
Well, you get your budget monthly. Do you have money in there?
I think we'll be all right on it.
Yeah, you're going to have to probably, bottom line, cut off something else
Yeah.
that don't spend $20,000 on.
Can you buy it for $5,000 over a 4-year period?
I can always ask, and I know we did cut any sand for this, or for last year, so we had no sand hauling for 2025. We're still using existing sand from last year.
So you can make up the difference.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Councilor Beyondich?
Thank you. I always look to Sherry for the financial piece, but so as long as, when you come forward asking for these, if it's in your budget, I guess,
Sure.
or how you're going to create that, so.
And I do have some additional items going out for government surplus. I've got old trackless, I've got a trackless, I've got a couple other trucks that still have to go out, so we recoup some of that also there.
So you do feel that you would be able to get this 20,000
Yes.
covered?
Yep.
Thank you.
I will
Thank
move, I will move authorization to move forward with the purchase.
Counselor Johnson makes a motion to move forward with the purchase. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jim, very much. Appreciate it. Okay, go to item number 11. Under other items of concern, review the proposed cannabis ordinance. This is from 114 of 25. 11A is the addition of section 647 that outlines cannabis business. And the other is the update of Chapter 11, land use regulations and zoning. And if I could just turn this over to Jenny, could you give me a little highlight of where we're at on this?
Mayor, thank you. So the ordinance has been updated formatting-wise to be in the proper format for an ordinance. So that is one of the changes that was done since the last time you reviewed it. Additionally, there's some added language on page 5 of the ordinance, page 69 of the packet, that added a verification that a business is current on all property taxes and assessments for a proposed retail location. That was something that was optional that was felt that should be in there. So that was added. And then there was more or less a typo on C there where it said the application fees. There are no application fees, it's registration fees. So that change was made as well to be consistent with what actually is allowed. And then the most important, I think, change that came about, two changes that came about was increasing the 1,000 feet distance, buffer distance from a school. That was previously 500, it's been increased to 1,000. Again, just more formatting changes in that section. And then the biggest would be under zoning and land use that it essentially prior versions allowed it in business locations, and this version is only allowing it in industrial. Any type of retail and or manufacturing or business whatsoever would be only allowed in the industrial zone districts. And then lastly, excuse me, there's a severability section added, which is standard language for most ordinances. Anything else any questions?
Thank you, Jenny. Counselor Johnson?
Thank you. My first question, are these changes the recommendations from planning and zoning, or are these the ones that the council has been asking for?
Mayor?
Jenny?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Johnson, these recommendations, it's my understanding, are coming from council and not from planning and zoning. The previous version was planning and zoning recommendations.
Okay, and has planning and zoning approved these changes at all?
Planning and zoning reviewed these changes last night as they were sent out in the packet last Thursday, I believe. So we had our regular meeting last night and we didn't have any variance cases, so we discussed some of these changes. And they have not made any recommendation
Okay, thank you.
pertaining to these.
I feel like we're creating a nightmare for the future. We are zoning pretty much any retail business out of any place that could make some money. We are zoning ourselves out of 1% sales tax. I don't understand. The state has a very rigorous process. To get a license from the state requires an inordinate amount of work. For us to continue to create more work and more restriction based on what the state is doing is only going to make us change our chart or change the ordinance when they change, because they will change. This is going to be an evolving process. Every legislative session, I anticipate there's going to be some changes and tweaks and all that kind of stuff. And that's going to be more work for us and more work for our staff. I absolutely will not support regulating these folks into our industrial parks, which will have absolutely no traffic. I have 2 small children. Being so afraid to place a business within 1,000 feet, 500 feet of a school is absolutely ridiculous to me. A cannabis building on our main street will be watched closer than any school, any daycare, any jail that we have. We have a jail across the street from our elementary school. It is watched every day, all day long. If we should be more concerned about someone getting out there than we should be about somebody, a child trying to sneak in to a cannabis shop to buy cannabis. Like, I seriously don't understand this regulation and this when it's all being done by the state for us. If we want to be supportive of our small businesses, we need to allow them to be small businesses where they know, where they've done the work and they've done the research to understand where they're going to be able to make money. So at this point, this ordinance has got way out of control. And I will not be supporting it. And I encourage folks who are out in the public who believe in what's going on and know how beneficial cannabis can be to people in general need to come and support and talk on the other side of this. Because at this point, the only place these people can be, there's like 3 spots in the city of Virginia where this can exist, because I'll remind people that Marquette School is right next to our industrial park, for lack of a better phrasing. So I think we need to go back to a cannabis ordinance that relates to state statute and that is flexible with when that state statute changes. And that way it will be regulated, and it will be a way for us to not have to have 3 or 4 hours discussion every time the state changes the rules. So I am not supporting this moving forward, and I would like to see a much simpler, easier to understand, and an acceptingness of a small business that can generate a lot of revenue for the city of Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Quick question for you, Jenny. So in the industrial park, that's for manufacturing, correct?
Manufacturing of cannabis, that would be allowed per ordinance right now.
It'd be allowed per ordinance. And where would that be allowed?
In one of the industrial locations.
Thank you. That's all I have. Only question I have. The retail stuff can be in a business district. Retail.
Retail is also being proposed to be allowed only in industrial under this current version.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Councilor Freely.
I have to concur with Councilor Johnson. In my mind, it's like we do need business in the city of Virginia, and we do need to provide them the opportunity, any entrepreneur, especially for this type of business, to have access to trafficked areas or retail corridors such as the mall area or even Main Street or Second Avenue or somewhere where there's going to be traffic for this type of business. And I think restricting it and precluding them from being able to have that opportunity into some industrial area is not going to be beneficial to that business nor to the city of Virginia. So I think it's become too restrictive, and I think we need to rethink that. I couldn't support it in this current form at this point without lightening up on where they could operate in the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bionich.
Thank you. And I'm okay if we need to keep working on this, but I think the full council needs to be involved in it as well. And way back when this all started coming up, I did invite the chief of police to come and speak, and I'm kind of sad she wasn't able to make it the last time we had this meeting. But some of the concerns of the elderly in town, and I get it on cannabis. But I know I had asked at that time of the chief of police, how does this affect Virginia? I mean, the city. We are landlocked. We are we've got zoning all over the place. So trying to place it was a hardship. And at that time, she did explain the repercussions of overuse of cannabis to the safety, the driving. And I wanted to ask her, how will that affect or tax our police officers? Because they can't determine a level like they can with alcohol. So I have mixed feelings on this as well, as I talk to a lot of people my age, which are the elderly, and their concerns. So I understand, I know we have to do this, and I'm okay, but I think the full council needs to be involved in this discussion also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Pam, off the top of your head, how many liquor licenses do we have active in the city?
Mayor,
Yes, Pam.
between restaurants and the regular bars, probably about 12,
Okay.
15.
Thank you. And I would hope that those elderly residents have the same concerns about those 12 to 15 alcohol establishments as well. It is important to remember that these are retail spaces where people purchase and leave. They are not buildings where they're partaking of cannabis, as opposed to our restaurants and our bars where you cannot purchase and leave. So I think there might need to be some education in our community about exactly what a dispensary is as opposed to what you can do now. I can't go down to the smoke shop and buy a package of gummies and eat 6 of them there. That's not allowed. I purchase it, I leave, I go home. What happens in my car is my business, but that's the same thing as stopping at a liquor store and buying a bottle of your favorite drink and going into your car and drinking it. So there's a lot of fear and misconception. And with all due respect, Councilor Beyondich, our society has been programmed by Big Pharma for so long to fear cannabis and the safe use of cannabis that it has become an uneducation of that. Cannabis is safer than a lot of Big Pharma drugs, by far. And so what I feel is happening here is we're building in, and I'm taking a stand today. I will no longer allow the fear and the misinformation and the previous knowledge interfere with how we need to move forward as a city. There's towns in Minnesota or in Colorado that have become vibrant because of their cannabis laws and how their downtown was once worse than ours and is now vibrant with the ability to sell cannabis in restaurants and all kinds of stuff because people come there, they stop, they buy, and they drive through. We in the city of Virginia miss an opportunity, great level of stopping traffic from going from the cities to the lakes. There's an opportunity in general I see being missed there, and I don't want to create another roadblock for us to grow as a community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Jenny, just quickly, according to the law, individual people can grow up to, 5 plants in the privacy of their own home?
I believe that is the number, Mayor.
And they can keep the cannabis, they can carry it around with them, they can put it in their pocket, they can do whatever they want with it. The only thing is they can't smoke it in public. Is that correct?
Correct, Mayor.
Okay. And so, so when somebody, it's not a retail thing, but so people grow their own, they can give it away.
It's my understanding that gifting is allowed.
Yeah, giving it away is allowed according to the county attorney's office and according to the state office of cannabis management. So, sorry. So for me, it's about controlling the environment. For me, it's about the industrial piece of it when you're manufacturing the cannabis. I have a problem with that in a business area. I think if 1,000 feet is fine, should be even farther away when you come to manufacture. That stinks if you've ever been to one of these cannabis manufacturers, which I have been, several of them, they stink. So being on in that area, I think is appropriate. Now, we can argue about the retail piece of it if you want, but, so, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff in the law too that's created that. So the Office of Cannabis Management is continuing to change this and evolve over time. But we have to have an ordinance in place, not for the sale, but we just have to have a zoning piece in place. Otherwise, you know, we're gonna be putting it anywhere we want, so however that works. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. To clarify, from 342.09, personal adult use of cannabis from the city of Minnesota, or from the state of Minnesota. Personal use, possession, and transportation of cannabis flower and cannabinoid products. A, an individual 21 years of age or older may use, possess, or transport cannabis paraphernalia, possess or transport 2 ounces or less of adult use cannabis flower in a public space, possess 2 pounds or less of adult cannabis flower in the individual's private residence, possess or transport 8 grams or less of adult use cannabis concentrate, possess or transport edible cannabis products or lower potency hemp edibles infused with a combined total of 800 milligrams or less of tetracannabinoid. Give no remuneration for an individual who is at least 21 years of age. And I just wanted to clarify, you made some statements that made it sound like people could carry around as much as they want and do whatever they want with it. It is still regulated very highly by the state, and the responsible people who are growing this in their own home take this very seriously. They're the responsible folks. They're the same people who are going to be going into a store to purchase. The regulation to purchase cannabis is, it's harder to buy. It's easier to get narcotics from your pharmacist than it is to get cannabis in a retail setting. My understanding is that you have to check in with a valid ID in a small locked room. They record that you're going to be there. Then you get buzzed in to the other next space. And this is what it is in Colorado, and once you get in there, nothing's available. You can't touch anything. Everything's behind glass, behind counters. You go in, you say, I want that, that, and that. They scan your ID again, and Minnesota may be different, but there's even regulations on how you can pay for it. So again, this is not somebody opening up a secondhand store and you just bring your stuff in and they'll sell it for you. Local people can't create their own and sell it in there. Again, the level of miscommunication, misleading, and just history continues to prohibit us from moving forward when it comes to something that can benefit hundreds, if not thousands, of people in the area. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, just to clarify, I didn't say that you could carry unlimited amounts. I know you can bring 5 plants. It was very clarified by Jenny what could be done. So your perception of what I said isn't what I said. I know what the law is. I read it. It's the same thing as you read it out in that regard. We're talking about the zoning right now, not about buying it or how you buy it or those kinds of things. Mary, you want to say something? Come on up.
Mary McReynolds, now representing the Planning and Zoning Commission. As Jenny said, we did meet last night, and this came up as part of our discussions. And I just want to reiterate to you all that the Planning and Zoning Commission acts professionally, and as part of our duties, it includes viewing appropriate usage and activities on properties in various zones throughout the city. In reference to retail establishments, the appropriate zones for those activities are delineated in our B1 and B2 zones. Retail cannabis is an appropriate usage in B1 or B2 as recommended by planning and zoning. We do not feel that the industrial zone is appropriate for that. Industrial zone uses are inherently incompatible with solely retail businesses due to traffic concerns, including large trucks, industrial equipment, noise, air quality, among other activities. And as Councilor Johnson pointed out or questioned, this recommendation to change where retail cannabis facilities can be located into industrial zones was not recommended by planning and zoning. But if the council would choose to return it to planning and zoning with questions and concerns, we'd be willing to put it back on our agenda.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it. Okay, Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you for that, Mary. I would be willing to do that. And I know I'm going to segue just for a minute here, but Councilor Johnson, you said something that I'm curious about. Why does it matter how it's paid for? What method of payment? I mean, you mentioned that and it piqued my interest.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. I actually don't know the answer to that, but I do know there were regulations in Colorado, and I'm pretty sure it was for tracking purposes. But I do not know, I don't know if Mr. Lindsay, you could do if you know anything about that at this point, or if there's anything in the current laws, but it was with purpose. It wasn't just a business decision. It's required there.
Brian?
I may want to dig into a little bit more. I know in different, in researching just generally how things have rolled out in other states and this interesting dynamic that we have with the federal government still related to legalized cannabis. I may want to dig into it a little bit more. I know for a long time in all jurisdictions that permitted cannabis sales, they were cash-only transactions because you couldn't use the credit cards or the banking industry because of the federal prohibition. Some of that I think is loosened up. And then in the local jurisdictions, each separate state seems to have something a little bit different as far as the process for sales. I couldn't speak to it directly. I'd want to do a little bit more research before giving a full opinion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, there's no motion on the floor, so. Any other comments, questions, concerns, or action to be asked? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to number 12, which is review the draft request for proposals for animal control services. Councilor Motley, and then over to Councilor Johnson.
Just segueing from this at the moment, just curious, have we been getting, I don't know, if Britt's not here, but Sherry, do you know if we've been getting any bills, $600 a pet? What's that looking like?
I have not seen anything come through, and I'm sure the ladies down in accounting would definitely be alerting me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
I did have a conversation with Carly Gobat. She just stepped into the office, and she said, well, she asked, is that $45,000 still on the table? They know that we're looking to go for a request for proposals. I said, well, you'll have to come before the council and ask that question. Or call Rich C. Bennis for that. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. I can't answer the question about whether there have been any invoices. I know that in certain of the communications that I've observed, there was, I think, like 9 animals that they had attributed, and I think the response that the city had provided was you need to provide verification and documentation that those were animals picked up at the city's request. As I understand, that's kind of our interim agreement is if they can supply proper documentation, the city has agreed to make payment, but unless the city has requested a service, we're not responsible.
I will move the RFP forward to the council meeting for formal approval.
Councilor Johnson moves to set forth for the council to the draft request for proposals for animal control services, the next council meeting. Is there support? Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Bachschnider. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Beyondich.
So will that discussion take place with the current animal control or no?
I told Ms. Gobats that this is already been vetted out. We already have put our RFPs out. If they wanted to take a look at it, they'd have to come back before the full council and make a formal request, or we'll talk to Britt C. Bennis about it.
Thank you.
And she's not part of this. She's not on the board anymore. So she's happened to stop by and talk to me about it, another subject, and I just mentioned that. Yeah, she was, I'm not part of that, so. She said, do you think that's still on the table? I said, you'll have to come before the council or you see our city administrator to determine whether or not that's still something that's on the table. So is that 45,000 still in our budget for 2025, Sherry?
Mary, yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
I would have to say that the Mesabi Humane Society has the same opportunities as everybody else now to provide a plan to utilize that $45,000 should they be awarded the contract.
Okay, thank you. Okay, has been moved and supported. Did we vote on that? Has it been moved and supported? Yes. Any further discussion on the contract? No request for proposals. Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Okay. No other items to come before the council today for the committee of the whole meeting. Thank you, everybody. We'll stand adjourned at 11:09 a.m. Have a good day. We are adjourned.